so Ian mentioned that I'm also a member of the Wild Law U.K group. Just a short bit about my story. Wild Law is this idea that all of our governance systems should be reoriented so that the earth comes first. This is completely different to the current system where it's all about the growth narrative and we have to keep building the economy, keep growing the economy. That's all we hear in the media. You know, there seems to be no alternative to that. Wild Law says, actually, that's completely wrong. We live on a finite planet. What we need to do is look at planetary boundaries, look at the Earth, and then base all our decisions on that. And another fundamental principle of Wild Law is this idea that nature has rights. Because at the moment, under the legal system, nature is considered to be property. It's a commodity. It's not recognised that it has inherent value or inherent worth, and this is reflected in the language that we use to talk about aspects of the natural environment. So we talk about exploiting our natural resources, but in fact we're referring to species that we've co-evolved with over, since time immemorial. So Wild Law, we did a lot of work around trying to promote awareness about the Universal Declaration of the Rights of Mother Earth, which is a people's declaration that came out of Bolivia and the conference that took place in April 2010 there. Now, until I got involved with Occupy from October, I didn't appreciate how radical those ideas were if they were to become a reality. Essentially, the very structure of the law is unjust. It subordinates communities and nature and people to corporate control. So the ecological crisis is fundamentally a democratic crisis. And attempts at sustainability are actually unlawful under the current system. The legal system supports the status quo, it supports the capitalist system, and it facilitates and legitimises the destruction of our planet for profit. That's what it comes down to. What I briefly want to talk about, thank you. What I briefly want to talk about is this new idea that for a campaign that I'm trying to promote. There's an organisation, a public interest law firm in the States called the Community Environmental Legal Defence Fund. And for the last 15 years or so, they've been working with communities to get them to mobilise and campaign for a community bill of rights. And essentially, this is a local law. It's a few pages long. It's in two parts, essentially. The first part sets out the rights of the community. These are fundamental rights that I think if you ask people, what do people need to live well? These are the sorts of things that come up. Things like right to a local economy, right to a sustainable food system, right to affordable renewable energy, right to people's self-governance, and rights of nature, of course, is in there. And the second part of the Community Bill of Rights sets out prohibitions on corporate legal privileges. Because we have a situation at the moment where corporate rights trump other rights. They trump human rights, and they certainly trump the rights of nature, because nature has no rights in our legal system. This is why I say it's a democratic problem, because corporations have the most important right in our society today is the right to property. The European Convention on Human Rights gives rights to natural and legal persons. So you see corporates using their right to property, the right to peaceful enjoyment of property. They use that all the time, and that defeats attempts to protect the environment and people's rights to enjoy nature, to achieve well-being within the human and the natural communities in which we exist. So the Community Bill of Rights is trying to elevate the rights of communities and nature above corporate rights. And it's essentially about who decides. Is it us? Is it us deciding what happens in our communities? Or people that are affected? Or is it someone else deciding? So why is it, for example, we can't say no to the fourth Tesco in the high street? Why is it that we have fracking moving in communities all over this country and people don't want it? The reason is because the legal system is fundamentally unjust and structured against us to make us subordinate to corporate control. So the Community Bill of Rights is much more than just a legal strategy. It's about a new civil rights movement. Just like the abolitionists and the suffragettes, they didn't. I mean, there was an element of working with sympathetic people in Parliament, but it was about taking direct action. It was about asserting rights and not asking the people in power, begging them for rights, because that's not what's going to happen. I mean, that's not how people's movements work and how we get real change. Real change happens when people get together in their communities and mobilise, and we need to build a people's movement. The legal basis for the Community Bill of Rights is the idea that all power is inherent in the people, and this idea of consent to be governed. I think what we've seen with Occupy and the mass support for that is that we don't agree with how we're being governed. We don't agree with the way the system works against us to concentrate power to the 1% at the expense of the 99%. So unfortunately I don't have any copies of the Community Bill of Rights with me today. Well, I have one. But I do have a website, Occupy Law U.K, and Community Bill of Rights is up there. I've tailored it from what the communities in the US are doing to suit the UK context. And I'm really looking forward to working with community groups that are sort of interested in using challenging the very structure of law to assert rights and to take back control so that we decide what happens in our communities, not someone else that is not affected by those decisions. Thank you.